The recent scale of Russia's military offensive, characterized by the deployment of 270 drones and 10 missiles, has inflicted considerable damage on multiple Ukrainian towns and cities. This incessant aggression not only raises alarms about military logistics, but more critically underscores the pressing concerns for civilian safety and well-being amid the ongoing hostilities. Transitioning to the diplomatic arena, European leaders reveal a spectrum of perspectives regarding the ongoing conflict. Germany advocates for a ceasefire, aiming to pause hostilities, while France remains skeptical about President Putin's genuine commitment to peace. Such divisions among key European stakeholders markedly complicate the prospects for a cohesive and unified diplomatic approach. Moreover, apprehensions mount that Russia may exploit negotiations as a mere facade, utilizing the diplomatic process as a delaying tactic while it continues its military onslaught. This strategy poses a significant risk, as it could effectively undermine any sincere peace initiatives that may emerge from the discussions. Adding complexity to the negotiation efforts, Russia's perception of Ukraine plays a critical role. President Putin's refusal to acknowledge Ukraine's sovereignty or President Zelenskyy's legitimate authority creates a foundational rift. This persistent disagreement represents a formidable obstacle to achieving lasting peace and stability in the region. In this challenging context, the United States emerges as a pivotal potential mediator. The active involvement of U.S. leadership, notably by figures such as President Trump, could serve to facilitate meaningful discussions, thereby reducing the likelihood of the situation escalating into further conflict. Finally, it is essential to emphasize that security guarantees hold paramount importance for Ukraine in any prospective agreement. The United States must ensure that its support remains not only reliable but also binding, effectively deterring any future aggressions from Russia against Ukrainian territory.
Meanwhile, Ukrainian leaders say Vladimir Putin's not interested in peace after another Russian drone attack on Ukraine. Chief Foreign Correspondent Ian Pannell's in Kyiv with the latest on the strikes and the reaction there to that meeting.
While European leaders and President Trump were wrapping up their so-called peace talks, Russia was launching more attacks on Ukraine. 270 drones and 10 missiles fired overnight and this morning, hitting 16 different towns and cities. There were images of smoke billowing over the Ukrainian city of Kremenchuk today. The city's mayor there reporting dozens of explosions, with Russia again targeting Ukrainian energy and transport facilities. President Trump now working on getting Putin and Zelenskyy together, and Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov this morning not ruling out any kind of meetings. But Russia opposed to any idea of a NATO contingent to provide these security guarantees. And the thorniest issue of all, Russia's demands for 20% of Ukrainian territory, not yet even under serious discussion. So I think despite the upbeat mood in Washington and from their own presidents, war-weary Ukrainians see no immediate change in the landscape and honestly, no end to the war in sight. Diane?
Ian Pannell in Kyiv, thank you. And ABC News national security and defense analyst Mick Mulroy has more on this. Mick, European leaders seem to have some differences despite presenting a united front here. Germany argued for a ceasefire. France was skeptical that Putin wants peace at all. What do you make of the tone of this meeting and where things are headed now?
And I think if you combine the two, that's why there's so much talk about this ceasefire. If Russia is intending to continue this conflict, they could use negotiations as part of that delaying tactic. They could send lower level or even the highest level, Lavrov, for example, the foreign minister, to have endless amounts of meetings that lead nowhere. And then they continue to seize terrain, terrorize Ukrainian citizens like Ian just described. And that's the big concern. If there's not a ceasefire, there's no real forcing function for Russia to get to a place where Ukraine can actually accept it and this war could come to an end.
Germany says a Putin-Zelenskyy meeting could happen within 2 weeks. Zelenskyy says he's ready for a trilateral meeting. So how do you see this playing out?
So this is going to be obviously a very tense meeting if it happens. The issue is President Putin doesn't really consider Ukraine a country, hence that's why he invaded it. And he doesn't therefore consider President Zelenskyy a leader, an authoritative leader of a country he doesn't acknowledge exists. Of course, from the Ukrainian perspective, they are not only a country, obviously, they're a democratic country that stood up to a superpower for over 3.5 years, and they have every right to negotiate on their own behalf and determine their own future. So it's going to be a lot of, I think, cajoling by the Trump administration in the United States to get this to happen. It would seem to me that they would need a mediator on their first meeting, or this could go significantly awry. And maybe the United States is the only country that can actually do that. Maybe President Trump's the only leader that can actually do that. But the more discussions, the better. But ultimately, it's going to have to prove out that Russia is not just using this for a delaying tactic, and they're serious when it comes to these negotiations. If it just keeps going on, then they're really going to have to look at these secondary sanctions or other means to really force Russia to take this seriously and get to an actual agreement that both sides can live with.
Trump said on social media the leaders discussed security guarantees for Ukraine, but he wasn't very specific there. Are there any absolutes you think need to be included in that?
Well, if you look back to the original plan that the U.S. proposed many months ago, Special Envoy Kellogg is the one that presented it. It talks about a multinational force led by what's now called the Coalition of the Willing, these 30 countries, predominantly European, that would be willing to send in what would be a multinational force. The question is, will that come with a resolution that's binding on all the above, that if Russia decides to start the war again, that they will fight as if it was an Article 5 obligation? Will the U.S. back up this ground force with air support, intelligence support? It does seem like the U.S. is open to that. These are all things that are not only a good step, a positive that came out of the Alaska summit, they're absolutely essential if we expect any chance that Ukraine's going to accept any kind of ceding of territory to the Russians, whether it's legal or just an acknowledgement that the Russians own it. They're going to demand, as they should, that they actually have any security assurances, because they've had ones in the past that did not prove to be worth the paper they were written on. And the U.S. was actually part of that. So they're going to want something that's much more, as they're calling, ironclad than in the past.